So thank you everybody for joining today. Our Global Shiatsu Virtual Gathering presentation, Zoom sharing number 18. Today's presenter is Chris McAlister from Sweden. And we are super excited. Welcome him back. This is his second presentation. He knows so much. We couldn't stop asking him to come again, and he kindly accepted our offer. So today's focus is about his book, Touching the Invisible. So let's meditate and put our mind, hands together and focus. And let's send healing energy to everybody. Namu Shinyo Ichinyo To Toki Miho Tokeo Nenji Tate Matsuru Zangi Zange Rokon Zaisho Metsujo Bonno Metsujo Gonsho On Saraba Tatagata Anamana no Karomi. And let's reflect to ourselves what's going on with our yin-yang energy. How was your week? You had so much burst of yang energy of spring, or you had low energy of spring energy. Let's just reflect ourselves and be kind to yourself and give a gentle healing energy to everybody, include yourself. Shiatsu is wonderful self-care techniques. You can use anytime, any day, any locations. We don't have anything. We just need ourselves. And today's presenter is Chris McAlister from Sweden. He is the president of European Shiatsu Federation for Complementary and Alternative Medicine. It's such a long title. He is such an incredible person, and he has incredible knowledge. We are super excited to welcome him back. Thank you, Chris. Please take away from here.
Thank you very much, Kumiko. Delighted to be here and delighted to be part of the Five Lights movement. I'm very, very happy to see you carrying on week after week, inviting new people every week. It's a real pleasure to see, and it's a pleasure to be part of it, Kumiko. Thank you.
Thank you.
So folks, here we are, Touching the Invisible. And you see the Three Musketeers is the name that our students gave us a while back in the early 2000s. And this little team developed around about late 90s. And we started to have residentials. We started at my place out in the countryside, and we moved it to this holiday island where you can see us there in the picture. And we had like 3-4 day residentials, and the idea was to take people into the areas that we were currently researching, our current interests. So we didn't have to stick to a curriculum. We could be free and show people what we were most enthusiastic about at this particular moment. And we were joining each other's classes, learning from each other. It was a really interesting time, a very flourishing time. And Jan, who you can see in the blue t-shirt there, suggested that we write a book together afterwards. And that's how this stage of the process began. And that started in like 2006, 2007. And then the book project began in 2008 for real. And then it recently, the book came out. So roughly 12, 13 years to create this book. The title, Touching the Invisible, refers to the fact that even though we touch with Shiatsu, we touch the physical, we also touch the invisible part of the human being, which is not clear to Western science yet. It probably will be soon, another 20, 30 years. But we can touch it. And we use the tools that we've set out in this book, and which many of you already know, but some people are not so familiar with these tools. So we decided to explain them as clearly and as simply as possible, but also from as many angles as possible, incorporating our three unique perspectives. Even though there was a large overlap between what we had to say, there was also some differences. So we wanted to present it in that way as a mosaic. And this question and answer format became the best way to do that. So that's what we decided to do. Yeah, so this is a quote which says a lot about where we are in our development as human beings. And it relates to what Eva was talking about just now. When science, the day science begins to study non-physical phenomena, i.e. the invisible, it will make more progress in 1 decade, that's 10 years, than in all the previous centuries of its existence. Nikola Tesla, and his work has never been more topical than it is now. And I think very, very soon we're going to see a resurgence of his work in many different spheres, backed by people with serious money and serious power. And we're going to move into the next paradigm, which is what this book is all about. So let's move on. That's my profile thing there. That's the logo of the European Shiatsu Federation right down there. Eva and Kumiko were very keen that that should be there. We're here, we're in the business of promoting Shiatsu, and ESF, the European Shiatsu Federation, is one of the groups in the world that's working hard to do that. And very soon we're going to be promoting a new initiative, which I can't announce yet, but next week we will be able to do it probably. And hopefully that will be something which will bring people together, just like the other initiatives that are going on around the world, including Kumiko and Eva's initiative here, Mikhail's initiative with Everything Shiatsu, Ivan Bell's initiative with the humanitarian, and what may be soon coming out, an International Shiatsu Day. More about that later on. You'll be receiving a PDF version of this, so you can read that text later on if you choose to. Let's move on and look at Jan, who's the next in line. That's one of my co-creators there, Jan Nevelius, an incredible man. He is unique in the world in that he travels around the world holding Aikido seminars and actually gets paid for that. So that's a fairly amazing thing, because hardly anybody else gets paid to teach Aikido in the world. And he actually earns his living doing it, spreading the way of harmony through a martial art called Aikido. A very experienced practitioner and a good friend. So let's go to Jeremy. Jeremy's a quite different character from Australia. Jan is from Sweden, Jeremy from Australia, and a joker, a magician, a laughter character, very fast, very smart, an all-round person. He's an actor, a musician. We're very similar in that sense, but he's very different to me, and I know he's like lightning fast. And actually he's moving into the area of plant medicine and shamanism pretty intensively at the moment. So that's Jeremy, and he's the one who brought the team together originally. So we have a lot to thank Jeremy for. All right, moving on.
Yes,
we have the first...
maybe I will introduce myself.
Good.
Hi everyone, I'm Eva Salonia. I'm a head of marketing department and social media department in the Five Light Center. And I received book from Chris. I received it and I saved the packaging and I put it on a hanger because from what I understand about Shiatsu is that it's imprinted in the language and in the terminology and life. And I also believe that we are creating big movement, which will be important in future. And this is my memory of the beginnings of Shiatsu movement, global Shiatsu gatherings movement. So here is the book, and we dedicate today's lecture to future students of Shiatsu. And we are grateful to those three musketeers, as Chris called your authors, you guys, and so we dedicate to future generations of students this book. So to me, the book was not easy to read, even if it's for the beginners and for people interested in shiatsu. It was not easy to read because it was written for 12 years. And I feel like every word has a meaning there. I feel like it puts me into trance reading it. So very interesting thing. So I will be asking really silly questions because the book is dedicated to the people of the West to learn what shiatsu is. So today I will be representing the beginner. Okay, Chris, can you please start?
Yeah, I'd like to. So this is the first chapter in the book. And first of all, I'd like to direct your attention to the image just for a moment. Those are Jeremy's hands. And the idea of the stones is to present the pathway, the path of shiatsu, the way of shiatsu, which is part of the way of Taoism, of Buddhism, of all of those traditions that have helped us to get where we are today and will help us go further and beyond that. The images were created by Maria Sandberg. You can see at the top of the page, she's got a credit there. And the photography is by Jan Nevelius, and that's all the way through now. So Jan, not only Aikido, writer, shiatsu therapist, but also a very, very good photographer. So the images were created to illustrate aspects of the book, and that's not an easy task, and it took a lot of work, and all credit to Maria Sandberg for making those images for us. 10,000 meetings, it means that, go back a little bit. 10,000 meetings refers to the amount of time it takes to learn shiatsu, because shiatsu is an art, shiatsu is a craft, shiatsu is a discipline, shiatsu is part of your way, part of our way, my way. It takes a while. And even though you can do very, very good shiatsu after just one weekend, still it takes a while to really embed yourself in shiatsu. And if you let 1,000 people pass beneath your hands, you'll learn a lot without needing to read too many books or attend too many lectures. Just the practice is so important. And I think that Kumiko would probably agree with me that the art of shiatsu is in the practice of shiatsu. So that's the first chapter. It's dedicated to our entry into the world of shiatsu, our finding the path in three very different ways from three very different backgrounds. And then the initial part of our path, what we found easy, what we found difficult, and then a few guiding words about how to find your way. And remember that this is the book that we wrote because it was the book that we wanted. We wished this book had been around when we were beginning. And so it's a guide in that sense, kind of a mentorship, helping hand for people who are studying, but also who are becoming practitioners with all the different types of problems and challenges that you're going to meet on the way. So we hope that we've shared a few things that we learned on the way and that helped us to take the next step and carry on and not give up.
Okay, Chris, I
Yes.
have a question.
Hit
me. Here's the quote from Nikola Tesla. It's chapter 6, but I think it's important and expresses the thought. If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. That's Nikola Tesla. And can you tell me what is shiatsu?
Shiatsu is a way of harmonizing and aligning vibration and frequency, exactly what Nikola Tesla is talking about. He's talking about it from the point of view of somebody who researches frequencies using instrumentation. We research frequencies from the perspective of somebody touching a human body and tuning into the frequencies involved in health, the frequencies involved in disease, and trying to harmonize the ones that lead towards disease to create health and vitality. Everything is about vibration, and the Chinese medicine, which shiatsu is very much aligned with, speaks of qi, and qi means life energy. This word comes in many, many cultures, but qi is the Chinese word, ki is the Japanese word for life force or life energy, and that is what we tune into through our hands, through our ears, through our eyes, through much more subtle techniques as well, Eva, as you probably realize by now. Some things that are very, very difficult to describe, even though we've tried to describe them in this book in different ways.
And what is Shiatsu to you?
Shiatsu for me is a life path. It's a practice. It's a lifestyle. Everything that I do in my life now relates in one way or another to Shiatsu, either because I'm doing or teaching or thinking about it or dreaming about it or relating everyday events through the prism, through the lens of Shiatsu, and understanding reality through the methods of understanding reality that Shiatsu presents and elaborates.
Okay, so we can move on to the next chapter. No questions for this one.
Great.
Okay, so physical effects of Shiatsu treatment.
Yeah, we wanted to start here for the very simple reason that Shiatsu begins and ends with touch, which is a physical phenomenon. And even though the physical touch itself immediately arouses energetic change on all different levels, we wanted to focus on the physical first, just to underline that aspect of our practice. It does involve physical practice, and it does involve physical touch. It involves physical presence, and those things are incredibly important. They've always been important in Shiatsu, and they probably will always be important to us. So that's the reason that Shiatsu, this chapter, comes so early on in the text, and it grounds the book into the physical practice of Shiatsu.
Okay, so Shiatsu is a form of massage.
You'll never hear me say the word massage in connection with Shiatsu. I'll never do that. Bodywork, maybe, but it's a bodywork that is designed to connect with the energetic matrix of the body and of the mind and of the heart and of the spirit. So I never use the word massage, even though some people do, but I don't, because for me, if you say massage, you're talking about something which is purely physical, and Shiatsu is not purely physical. Shiatsu does regard anatomy, but it doesn't regard anatomy in the same way as massage does. Massage regards anatomy as a way of interaction. For us, it's a doorway into the interaction on other levels.
Oh, okay, because in the United States, Shiatsu is considered as a form of massage, and I think it's important to clear it up. What it is.
Yeah, these are political things, Eva, and it happens in many countries. In Austria, for example, Shiatsu is legally recognized under the banner of massage. And that's really unfortunate in one way, even though it's convenient in another way. It does create problems because the language needs to be specific, and the language of Shiatsu is very specific. Even though it's slightly alien to Western mind, it's there to educate the Western mind, to enlighten us, and to, as you very correctly said, raise the vibration of Western thought. Paradoxically, through the physical.
So what are the emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual effects of Shiatsu? That takes us to chapter number 3.
It does indeed. And of course, these things are actually very, very difficult to separate. So that was a major task for us, to separate these things out and actually pedagogically treat them as separate, even though they're not really separate at all. If we look at the vibrations, the frequencies that make up a human being, it's a spectrum, and that spectrum changes gradually. So the switch from emotional to mental is in some ways impossible to calibrate. So these words are used in a pedagogical sense, but they're in no way intended to be in any way separate phenomena, really. In terms of energy, they merge into one another. There is no limit to the effect of Shiatsu on any of these levels. We talk about levels. Some people talk about 3 levels, some people talk about 4 levels, some people talk about 5. There's different ways to manage these things. For me, 3 or 4 levels works depending on who you're talking about. Some people just say psychosomatic, and that also works, right? Because then we understand that there's a psychological level. There's also a somatic physical level, and these two interact continually and feed off of each other. Just like you would go to the cinema and watch a film, and the film would move you in many ways and would cause physiological reactions through an emotional reaction. So these things are not foreign to us, really, but Western science has intended in some way to separate them, and in doing so has created an artificial separation in our minds about these things. They're not separate at all. And there's no limit to the effects of shiatsu on any of these so-called levels.
Okay, yeah, the Western world is not the science world is not does not know the term of qi, but we will get to that, right? Okay, so I found this in this chapter interesting quote: "Our spirituality is perpetually under construction."
Yeah, I said those words and I remember saying them. And the reason I said that in that exact way is because under construction is something that you see a lot on websites when you go in there, and it's being updated, it's evolving, it's being created in a new way. This is what happens to us all the time in shiatsu. I'm sure Kumiko would agree that our perception changes all the time with shiatsu, and every new client teaches us something new, not just about ourselves, but about the world, about life, and about how spirit interacts with the physical aspects of life. So this thing about being under construction, it gives you a kind of humility about what you know and what you don't know, and what you may be able to know, and maybe what you never will be able to know, because there's just too much. If you take reality as a whole, how much can we ever possibly understand? There are things that may be unknowable for us in this 3-dimensional or 4 or 5-dimensional world that we live in. Even though we continue to raise our vibration, we continue to expand our consciousness, still there are limits because we're still always under construction on the spiritual level.
Okay, so I get it. So it's shiatsu practitioner, a shiatsu therapist is entering the psychosomatic system of a client patient, and is doing the construction together, body mind construction together, helping and supporting client patient.
Very much so, Eva. And we chose the word co-creator there very consciously because we really want that to see, and you'll see in the picture there, you'll see people doing Qigong on the beach at one of our courses. And we really do want to empower our clients and make them co-creators of their own reality and put them back behind the steering wheel of their life so that they are now in control again. We're not doctors, we're not psychotherapists, we're not interested in steering people, we're interested in empowering and giving people back control over their lives and making them into co-creators.
So how many sessions do I need? And what kind of problems do I resolve with a shiatsu therapist?
You can resolve acute issues very fast. So for example, if you come to me with a headache, we can probably resolve that within a few minutes. But if you've got endometriosis, that will probably take a few months of treatments to get anywhere close to resolve it because it's embedded in your system, it's become chronic, and that's much more difficult to shift. So what we usually talk about is making the chronic acute. We bring chronic problems back up to the surface. Once they're at the surface, then we can resolve them. But as long as they're embedded inside the structure of the body-mind, they're very difficult to access, very difficult to resolve. As soon as they become acute, we can resolve them, no problem at all. So it's a time frame depending on the acute or the chronic nature of the condition.
So a person that is going through cancer can also be treated with shiatsu and supported by a shiatsu therapist, right?
Yeah, unconditionally, yes. That's the answer to that question, because there is nobody in the world who cannot benefit from shiatsu on some level. For example, somebody who's dying, you can give them shiatsu and their passing will be much more harmonious. They will pass in a much more harmonic way with their senses in a much more fulfilled state. So that's the logical conclusion of me saying that everybody can benefit from shiatsu. And a baby that's not yet born can benefit from shiatsu inside its mother's womb. And I've done that on many occasions. And the baby actually recognizes you afterwards because of your voice and your presence is so familiar. Wow. So one of the most beautiful things that you can experience is treating a pregnant woman, perhaps not in the first trimester, that's a little bit tricky, but in the second and third trimester and even close to the birth. And also when they bring the baby back to meet you again, just your presence interacting with the baby is already shiatsu, and the baby will respond to that immediately.
Oh.
So you can really, really be influential in guiding a new life in a really beautiful way. And so they actually don't have to have some of the problems they might have had. You can guide them through them in the uterus, as it were, and through the birth and through the early months. So shiatsu is an incredibly powerful tool in so many ways.
Yeah, and also now we need to explain what the word healer means, because in Western world we all think, oh, the healer is the person that will heal you from everything. So the people that are against healers, they say, oh, medicine is good, Western medicine is good, and don't go to a healer if you have cancer because it's all BS.
Right. Of course, when we think about healing in shiatsu, and we have a chapter about it later on, chapter 13 is all about that. There is, of course, an aspect of healing in shiatsu, and the aspect of healing, weirdly enough, Eva, is that both parties get healed. And that increases our humility, because we understand that we also need healing all the time. We're not perfect, we're not whole yet. We're working towards wholeness, we're working towards health, we're working towards optimal vitality. That's part of the progress we're in. And that's the reason we love shiatsu so much, because it gives so much back to us. My teacher said this. Suzuki was my teacher in Japan. He was one of Masunaga's students, late students, in fact. And they had a very close relationship. Suzuki said to us once, and he only said it once. In the 3 years I was with him, he said it once. When you emerge, when you engage with the shiatsu field, a healing column opens up and envelopes you and the client together. So the healing goes to you and it goes to the client. So you're interacted together in that. When we write co-creator, we empower the client to become their own healer. Shiatsu activates the healing mechanisms, the healing powers, and the healing forces within a human being, which everybody has. And the more you can engage those forces, the quicker the healing is going to be, and the more complete it's going to be.
Okay, so what is the next chapter? Let me see.
Well, we skipped past one. We should go back one stage. There it is. So we wanted to write this chapter here. We didn't think about this from the beginning. This came during the writing, and we understood that there were things that were cloudy and in the background and in the shadows that we needed to lift into the light. And it's about this dynamic between the client and the therapist, which for us is really, really important. For me, the word chemistry is an absolutely critical part of this, a critical factor. If you have clients who come to you and they've been sent by somebody else and you don't get the chemistry, those treatments won't be nearly as successful.
What about sexual attraction?
Yeah, that's there. It really is there. It's like,
and I think, oh, I like him. So
yeah, it's a really big thing, actually, Eva. And that's part of this chapter. It's a really big part of it, because you have, of course, people who abuse other people in all sections of life. And depending on the shadows existing within us, there'll be more or less potential to abuse somebody else. And a client, of course, is in a situation where they are relatively passive, usually in the beginning. That's how they've been taught to be by doctors, by lawyers, by teachers, by priests. We are told to be passive when we're faced with authority figures. A therapist in our place, a shiatsu therapist, is an authority figure in that sense. Now, we do everything we can to balance it immediately. We laugh, we joke, we make people comfortable. We make sure they understand that we're people, we're not gods. We're not healers in that sense. We're just there to help and to collaborate with them. But the sexual thing and the amorosity, the thing that is awoken in some people it's really there. It's really there. So we don't take that lightly. We take that very seriously. And the quicker the therapist can recognize that, the better. And sometimes you can't see it. And people have broken off treatments with me. And I found out later on it's because they fell in love, or they had some kind of, excitement going on, or attraction, or something like that. And that's really difficult to deal with unless it's realized. And in that case, I didn't realize until later when they actually told me. So that's a really tricky thing. But as soon as you do realize it, then you have a responsibility to switch it round. So the energy that the patient, the client, is pushing towards you and shining on you, you switch it back. You give it back. And that applies to every single thing. When the client makes a really good decision, when the client makes a really good choice, when the client makes a really good, takes a good alternative that puts them back on their path, you give them that credit, even though they want to give it to you. You've really helped me so much. And great. And that's because you've been coming here regularly. It's because you've been taking advice. It's because you've been doing all these things actively and putting all this stuff. You really give it back. You give it straight back. And then it's win-win. And then it's paying forward. And all these good things happen. If you take that for yourself, it's a real trap. So therapists need to be really, really careful about this.
So what is the importance of conversation in Shiatsu? Because it's a body work, and the client, patient, which term should I use? The client or a patient? You
use your own words. We use client in the book because we were encouraged to do that. But in fact, we say patient in Sweden, but in Italy, they're not allowed to say patient. They say client or receiver. So you can use any word you like for me. I don't mind.
Okay, so I'll say client, patient together.
Sure.
So they have their clothes on,
mm-hmm.
and the body work includes the touching meridians, right?
Yes.
In the body. But
mm-hmm.
What about? We'll talk about meridians later. But what about the conversation and between client, patient, and therapist?
I find that a really important part, Eva. And to begin with, I didn't understand the importance at all. I came back from Japan and I'd learned to do shiatsu in absolute silence, apart from the first few minutes of asking a few questions. And then at the end, you maybe say, oh, blah, 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 blah. But I wasn't taught how to engage with my clients on that level. So I had to learn it. Now, luckily, I'm a communicative person. I always loved language. I always was able to imitate voices, and I love different foreign languages and stuff. And I can laugh and joke about anything. I'm actually used to being on stage, so I'm not shy about communicating with people. Like we're having a great conversation now, right? Because you're also not that wrapped up in your own shyness. You're approachable and easy to converse with. Some clients are not so easy to converse with. So you have to work in finding their level. What are they comfortable with? What level are they comfortable conversing with? Some people are very shy, very private. They're not used to sharing things. So you have to be very careful with that, very cautious, a little bit. You have to take it slowly. Other people are used to it and they'll put all sorts of intimate details right into your lap in the first few minutes. Like women will tell you about their menstrual cycle and their sexual life, and they're like, whoa, okay, fine. Other people, they tell you almost nothing. And that's the difference between perhaps a therapist who can really succeed and one who can't. You have to get into that level and find out where it is and then work within that range. And then there'll be moments you need to be quiet, absolutely quiet. When as soon as the patient stops talking, it goes down. It goes into the quietness. And then every comment you make, you have to gauge it in terms of, is this going to bring the patient back up into this chi-chi-chi-chi-chi-chi, or is it going to help them find the way where you'd like them to go in the process? So your words have to be directed towards the themes, the elements, the meridians, the points, or the ideas that you want to be exploring. It's an art. You have to develop it. It takes time.
Yeah, it seems quite complicated and with many levels, and that needs a lot of sensitivity.
Yeah, that's a good word, actually. And the word that we use throughout the book is consciousness and awareness. So for us, awareness is the absolute most important factor of all. In every single chapter, you'll see us using the word awareness again and again and again, because the difference between shiatsu and some of these other modalities, like, for example, Swedish massage, is that we really put the emphasis on the practitioner's awareness. That level needs to be raised continually, continually, continually. That's the job. That's why you're on this path, and that's why shiatsu pulled you in. That's why you're interested in shiatsu, because you know that it demands that you raise your level continually. You don't stop. You continually get into the more depth, you get into more breadth, you get into more subtleties, you get into more details, and simplicity. So you can do this thing about complexity and simplicity really swiftly, really easily. You can ask really, really, really detailed questions and then zoom out and say, okay, big picture. Let's do big picture. So you need to be able to do that. I think that's one of the skills you need to be able to develop at least.
Yes, so Shiatsu is comes from Japan, and it's based on Chinese medicine, and combined together with experiences and wisdom of ancestors from Japan.
Yes.
And it's deeply imprinted in the culture, spirituality. Kumiko is meditating, and she has mentors from Buddhist temple.
Mm.
And what do you think from Western perspective? How is the meditation part important? Is it a part of Shiatsu?
Yes, it's very much a part of Shiatsu. Almost every type of Shiatsu you'll encounter in the world, and there are many, many types. Most of them use aspects of meditation and practices which help you to refine and raise your awareness, but also to filter your awareness, because most of us are carrying a huge backpack of past experiences, and most of them are unresolved because we're not given tools in the West to resolve those kind of things, whereas Shiatsu gives you all those tools. And meditation is a very, very useful way of unpacking all that stuff and looking at it. For example, if you do Zen meditation, which I did for many, many years, and then switched to Taoist meditation, what you'll find is that during the meditation, all these things will unpack themselves from previous experiences. And you'll see them in a new light, and you can laugh at them, you can cry about them, you can get angry about them, but also you can watch them dissolve, and they lose their power, and they lose the charge that's been holding them as part of your life, and they dissolve. And you have more space to move into, to develop yourself more clearly on all these different levels as a human being.
So meditation is an important part for a therapist to develop better understanding, those awareness, sensitivity, and the view of the whole therapy.
Yeah, I think so. Most Shiatsu therapists would agree with you, and most students really enjoy that aspect of it. And don't forget that meditation comes in many, many different forms. It doesn't have to be Zen meditation. There's Western forms of meditation. There's even religious forms of meditation. Buddhism is kind of one, in fact. But you also have things like Tai Chi. You have Qigong. You have different types of meditation from yoga, for example. And so there's always something to fit everybody. And nowadays there's mindfulness, of course, which is taught by people who intend to remove the spirituality from meditation and intend to make it more palatable for Western people who really reject religion, rightly in my opinion, but I don't reject spirituality, I reject religion. For me, those are two quite different things. I'd like to be even more spiritual in my outlook on life, but I don't really want to get involved in any kind of religion.
Okay, so you're now in chapter 6 about Qi, and I did read the quote that opens this chapter, but I will read it again. If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Nikola Tesla.
Yeah.
So what is Qi?
The literal translation of Qi usually is life force or life energy. And when you translate it to Sanskrit, it becomes prana. But every single original culture in the world has a word for this. And what it means is that reality is made up of frequency. And frequency is a form of energy. Information is the thing that's sitting in between. So once you tune into frequency and energy, then the world opens up in a completely new way, and you understand the relationships between things that previously you didn't see the relationships between. You see associations between things that previously looked completely separate to you. You understand how one thing relates to another. And in my own experience, Eva, I came into all this through being very, very sick, very ill. I got really ill in Asia, and I was in Tibet, miles from anywhere, with hepatitis, completely crippled. And I gradually stumbled my way back to something like health. And I visited all these different practitioners, and some of them were like using Tibetan medicine, some of them Ayurvedic, some of them homeopathic, and some of them eventually using Chinese medicine and Tuina. And eventually, when I got to Japan, I was given this book called Zen Shiatsu, which most of the people on this webinar today will know all about. And it's got a very striking cover with the black and red yin yang, really dynamic. And I read this book, and it explained to me what I was intuitively understanding was that everything I'd been through was connected in some way. Once you understand Qi, once you understand life force and life energy, you understand connection. Once you understand connection, the secrets of the universe begin to unfold. And things that look completely nonsensical and mysterious and absurd begin to make sense. So this is what Qi is.
Okay, so my personal Qi is like the strength of energy I was born with, and
That's part of it.
With health problems, I'm losing it, and Shiatsu therapist is joining me and supports me so I can build it up back to the previous state, to the best version of myself. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's fair enough. You can nuance that picture, and you can say it in many different ways, but that's a really important thing that you've said there. People tend to erode their life energy rather than increase it. And then that leads to all sorts of problems in all sorts of levels of life. So when the shiatsu therapist meets you, what he'll do, he or she, usually she actually, she will encourage you to reharmonize the things that the tools that you're using in an erroneous way, the way you're using energy so it's leaking out of you, and you're encouraging kind of, let's say, destructive energy to come into your life instead, polluted energy or energy that doesn't actually serve you. So a lot of people are on a really strange diet where they're eating a lot of food that's artificial and has very, very little Qi, very little life force. So we will maybe give advice about that kind of thing. And our treatments go in and help the meridians to start working better and help the person to reject and eliminate slightly more negative energy or even traumatic energy. Don't forget, most of us are traumatized more or less, right, on different levels.
Okay, most of us or all of us?
All of us.
Because to me, it's a very interesting topic because we talk a lot about traumas and how to spot a trauma.
Yeah.
But this is subject for another talk.
Indeed.
But today, can you tell me what is yin and yang? That's another term.
Another massive. Are we going to move to the next slide, possibly? Yeah, there it is. Look at that. Yin and yang. You can see from the picture there that what we're talking about is light and dark in one way. And the word yin goes back to the Chinese concept of looking at a mountainside and seeing when the mountainside is in shadow, then a certain type of life grows and flourishes there. Whereas when the mountain is in light, another kind of life grows and flourishes there. So depending on the amount of light and heat available, you'll have different types of life forms. Let's take an example. Where you are in Florida, that's much more light. It's much more warm. So tropical plants will grow. Tropical animals will flourish. Birds and animals with bright colors will be. I live in Sweden. Most of the nature here is gray, brown, black, white. It's not nearly as colorful, and our seasons are quite different to yours. For example, we have a long winter, quite dark, whereas we have a very, very long and light summer, and spring goes pretty fast, autumn goes pretty fast. So this is our yin-yang balance that we have in Sweden, and it's a different one in Florida. And different types of lifestyles, philosophies, cultures, and spirituality grow out of those combinations. So yin-yang is a way of looking at the combinations of energy that exist in life, the polarities of life.
Okay, so it's like day and night and fast and slow and those dualities.
Dualities is a bit tricky because what we see with yin-yang is when we create the symbol of the yin-yang, what we see is motion and we see gradation. So we see that the yin goes into the yang becomes the yin. So even in the darkest day of winter, we notice that we've crossed the barrier into summer. Right there, is the barrier. And in the yin yang symbol, you'll see a white dot in the black. In the darkest of the black is the white dot. So the change is already there. Yin cannot continue to become more yin. It changes back to yang. So there's this idea of constant change, constant development, and the polarities, we prefer to use the word polarities rather than dualities. They merge and they mix and they transform into each other continually. Just like winter becomes spring, becomes summer, becomes late summer, becomes autumn, becomes winter again. And this cycle is what we're interested in. And that informs the philosophy of Taoism, for example, which is one of the absolute fundamental roots of Shiatsu.
Okay, so now I understand what that little dot is in the symbol.
So midsummer, right? There's the dot for the big white. There's a little dark in there, and it means, guys, this is the beginning of winter. Right here, even though you can't see it yet, be aware that the light is now going to go back into the darkness. So we have to prepare. We have to bring in the crops. We have to store the food. We have to make sure our winter gear is ready. We have to prepare everything we need for the winter. And then winter is not a problem. Winter is easy. It's just colder and darker.
Okay, great. Great to know. Okay, next.
So this is one of
everyone knows the yin yang symbol, but not very few people in the West know what that means.
Hardly anybody knows what Kyo and Jitsu means. This comes from partly from yin and yang, of course. So Kyo is the yin part and Jitsu is the yang part, and it comes from Chinese and traditional philosophy, but also from medicine. And Kyo in Chinese is Shu, X-U, and Jitsu is Shi, S-H-I. And these concepts have been brought into the Japanese medicine and developed by different types of therapists through the years. Kyo is usually translated as deficiency or lack of function, or even lack of life force. Whereas Jitsu would be the exact opposite, an overabundance or even a overactivity of function, which doesn't serve you either. Because if I'm too excited about something, then it's going to mess things up. Or if I'm too shy, that's also going to mess things up, right? I need to find that balance where I can move in between the polarities and keep my energy harmonious. So we don't want this jagged mountain line. We want this nice, smooth wave in our life. So when we get smooth waves, we're really happy, we're really harmonious, and we can make changes quickly and come back to our center really quickly. This is the art of Kyo and Jitsu. It's the art of finding where the extremes are and helping them to balance back into the middle again. In the West, it's called homeostasis. Homeostasis is the Western medical way of looking at the range of functions, and you want them all to be inside that range. You don't want anything sticking out of the top or down at the bottom. That's a simple way for Western people to approach this concept.
So how the Western world does the diagnosis, and how Shiatsu therapist?
Well, in the West, what's been going on for the past 150 to 200 years is they've been looking at pathology, and they've been trying to isolate pathological agents in terms of germs, in terms of viruses, in terms of pathogens. And they're looking for the active pathogen and trying to eliminate that pathogen, and in that sense, eliminate disease. We don't look at things quite like that. We look at the system itself and its own internal logic and health. Because, quite frankly, if I'm happy, if I'm healthy, if I'm harmonious, I won't get sick. Doesn't matter how many viruses or pathogens or bacteria you throw at me, it's going to bounce off. So I don't care about that stuff. If I'm healthy, doesn't matter. So you can be involved in situations which are actually quite pestilent, and you won't be affected because you, yourself, your system is so harmonious and so elastic that it will just not be affected by this stuff. So those external pathogens are nowhere near as important for us. And then we can talk about internal pathogens. For example, emotional states, trauma, things that we have ingested in form of beliefs that actually don't serve us and bring our energy levels down and infect us in the sense of turn our energy against us. So in the West, they're going crazy about autoimmune disease these days. that isn't a concept that even really makes any sense for a shiatsu therapist, because the body will never turn against itself. The body is fighting pathogens because it is always so intelligent that it will always do that. No matter how weak it is, it will always fight pathogens because it always wants to return to full health. That's the way we're built. That's our internal wisdom. That's our internal knowledge. And that's what we work with in shiatsu.
So shiatsu therapist is finding kyo and jitsu by palpation. That's the word I know.
Palpation is definitely one way we do that, and palpation of the hara, the abdomen, which we're going to come to in a minute, is a very, very common and popular way of doing that. But Kyo Jitsu exists everywhere in a human being. So when a person is expressing themselves through one part of their system, that's the Jitsu. And the Kyo is the part they're not expressing, the part that's in the shadows, the part that's hiding or being concealed, camouflage. So it's on every single level of the person. Palpation is a very useful tool, but it's not the only tool.
And I read that when you do the hara diagnosis with the patient, that the kyo is that when you touch is soft and jitsu is bouncing back. What is it?
Right, okay, so the general thing that we teach beginner students is that when the abdomen, let's take the abdomen for example, when it doesn't respond, when it doesn't meet you, when there's no elasticity and no response, that would equate to a cure. Whereas if it fights you, comes to meet you too early and doesn't let you in, and is already like a watchdog meeting you at the door when it really is there's no threat, that's what we call jitsu, because it's a completely disproportional reaction to something which is not at all dangerous. So you might be able to say like this, an allergic reaction is in itself jitsu. But the situation behind the allergic reaction is the cure, because something has caused that. And that cause is usually a deficiency in that sense. In this case, we see immune deficiency.
Okay, got it. So, but so with the person that is healthy, harmonious, that means that they have like what, kyo and jitsu balanced and in harmony?
Well, it's a good question. I think one of the things I learned quite early on here is that we're always moving through different kyo jitsu states. And in fact, you can have several going on at the same time in different areas of your life, different parts of your body. Some of them are more chronic, some are more acute. The important thing is that it's continually shifting and changing, which means you're continually evolving. If you're stuck in one kyo and jitsu state, you're working towards disease. So those things need to be moving the whole time, and they need to be not too extreme. So the difference between the kyo and jitsu wants to be not so far. If it's like this, no problem. If it's like this, big problem.
Okay.
Right? Because this is easy to resolve. This is much more difficult to resolve. This requires very little energy to balance. This requires a huge amount of energy to bring back and balance, right? So it's about proportionality.
Okay. And hara, what is hara?
Well, we skipped over the 5 elements there, so we might want to come back to that. I don't know, but we could talk about hara now.
Yeah, let's talk about hara now, because we said what's yin and yang, kyo and jitsu. So let's explain what hara is.
So hara is a part of the body. It's an anatomical part of the body, first of all, and it's the part of body which you might associate with your belly and with your lower back and with your pelvis. So those are the parts of the body that are important here. And what you would find, and we'll probably do an exercise in this later on if we have a bit of time, is that once you put yourself into that space, put your consciousness into that level of your body, anatomically speaking, a whole load of psychological effects follow. And most of those effects are being grounded, feeling really calm, and feeling really strong. And what they give you is endurance and perseverance and the ability to carry on when other people give up. So hara is this amazing tool that a lot of the traditional cultures have, and it keeps them continually resilient. You know what that word is, Eva? resilient. It means you bounce back.
Like, yes.
Like when you're a kid, maybe you saw that toy that had a really heavy base, right? You remember this? And you would push it and it would bounce back.
Yes.
You push it down, it would bounce back. This is the quality of hara.
Okay, and hara, so that's the place where chi is located.
Chi is everywhere, but a special kind of chi is there, which we call original chi. And that's ancestral chi. And it's located in time, space, back into the generations that produced you, that you are a product of, that you are the ultimate creation of so far. Of course, you give that to your children as well, naturally, and they have their own version of that. So when we use too much of our personal energy, our deep energy, our sexual energy, then we can drain that kind of force in us, and it leads to quite severe problems in the long run. And one of those problems we call burnout. And as you know from some of your friends and acquaintances, if you do get burnt out, it's not an easy journey to come back again. The reason is that these forces we're talking about, they are very deep, and they're very rich, and they're very dense, and they're not easy to replace. They don't come and go in a second. They're much more in connection with long processes. So if you've managed to burn them out, and you've done that over a series of years, probably a decade or two of stress, hard work, trauma, etc., and you will need to put quite a lot of work back into regaining your vitality and coming back into full health again. It will take a bit of time because we pushed the ribbon too far. That means we have to build it back again. And it's not like a cold, it's not like a flu. It takes a little bit of time. So people who are burnt out, you need to be patient with yourself. You need to be patient with your caregivers. You need to be patient with life. You will come back, but it will take a little bit of time and patience and some dedication.
It's like you create the intention of your life. You have to rebuild it, rebuild it, change it, right?
Yes, indeed. And a lot of people nowadays speak about the gift of burnout because it does cause you to reevaluate your life on many, many levels. And a lot of people will speak to that. And there's whole conferences on the gift of burnout nowadays. And that's fantastic because it is a tool and it does teach us a lot. It's just a little bit of a shame that it has to go so far before we learn our lessons. But sometimes it's like that. I think a big part of what we've been experiencing this year, and we'll continue to experience for a few more months, is a kind of colossal burnout because of our economic systems and our philosophical systems and our scientific systems. Actually, I'll go as far and say that. And we are desperately needing to move into the new paradigm. And I think that's part of what this book and what our conversation is all about.
Yeah, and so Eastern medicine is also, there's a concept of 5 elements, which I personally,
there it is. The 5 elements is an even more subtle tool for looking at transformation. So the word 5 elements in Chinese, actually it's, in Japanese it's Gogyo, Wu Xing in Chinese, and Xing in Chinese means direction or movement. So these are 5 different types of movement. And you can place them on a chart together and you'll see one goes up, one goes down, one goes in and one goes out, and one keeps the center. So 5 movements. And you can apply that to your life very, very simply. How much energy do I allow to go out? How much do I allow to come in? What kind of energy do I allow to go out? And what kind do I allow to come in? These are very easy and simple things to look at. Do I allow things to go up too much? Do I allow things to go down too much? Do I allow things to go down enough? Am I up in my head the whole time? All of these things are really important to look at. So directionality is a really crucial part of what we call the 5 elements or the 5 transformations or even the 5 phases. But movements is the key word. Directionality is the key word here.
I personally describe 5 elements as synchronizing with nature and seasons. That's
very good.
Simple and seasons and your body, yeah, with seasons.
It's very good, Eva. And everybody has a different body type, right? Where the 5 elements are represented more or less, right? So then we have to look at that. We need to look at balancing that. I'm living in Sweden, you're in Florida, so we have different elements going on the whole time. We need to relate to that. There's food, there's exercise, there's the people that we interact with, the activities we engage in. All of these things affect these 5 movements. So you're absolutely right. It's a seasonal thing. And the more you're in tune with the seasons, the less work you have to do.
Yes, and the clock.
And the clock.
24 hours. Yeah, that's also.
Sure, I relate that more to the meridians, so we can talk about that again when we get to the meridians in a couple of chapters.
Okay, so what is the next chapter?
Diagnosis, I believe.
Diagnosis.
And here, Eva, the picture is really important for us because that's a doorway we're looking at there, and those hands are moving towards the doorway. Those are Jeremy's hands again, I think, and they're moving towards that doorway. And the way we sum up diagnosis is the way that you find the doorway into the person you're working with. So your diagnosis is not going to be forever. It's not going to be conclusive. It's not going to be permanent. It's shifting, it's changing. We want the diagnosis to be evolving and to be temporary. But we want to just move in so that we can work in a logical way and in an effective way so that we don't waste time. We move it along as quickly as the patient is allowing us to move along.
So when you do diagnosis, you do it with touch? How do you diagnose your patient?
You do it with touch. You do it with your ears. You listen. Listening is a huge part of diagnosis for me because I just listen to what people tell me. And if you think about this quote from William Osler, who's the founder of modern medicine, listen to your patients. They are giving you the diagnosis. That's the founder of Western medicine saying that. William Osler, Sir William Osler, he was a Canadian who founded Johns Hopkins Hospital. If you think about that, it really makes a lot of sense. And you can translate, okay, you can substitute listen for observe. Feel, because when people talk, it has emotional resonance and it will resonate within your system on different levels, and you'll actually be able to feel a lot of what your client is experiencing, what they're talking about, and you can immediately relate it to yin yang, Kyo-jitsu, the 5 elements, different meridians, etc., etc. All these different frames of references and associations are to help us make our diagnosis smooth and direct and quick and easy and as simple as possible.
Yeah, you evaluate the way of the way the person speaks, the skin complexion, if they laugh a lot, right?
All of that stuff is really important, Eva. For example, once I had a patient and his voice was really, really quiet on the telephone. So I thought, okay, what we have here is a person who's a little bit kyo in general, so a little bit like low energy. When he came to the clinic, it time for his treatment. I couldn't find him anywhere. I was looking around the clinic. Where is this guy? And he was kind of sitting in a place that was slightly behind the door. So the diagnosis was already very, very clear. This person is really lacking in confidence. He's very, very shy. He doesn't want to show himself. He can't show himself. He's actually needing to be slightly invisible. So I already had all these clues before I even started the treatment. Very, very simple. So there's simple stuff like that. There's intuitive stuff. There's very, very subtle signals as well. Like, for example, when a person is talking and they keep saying the same word over and over again, then that word is obviously important and it has an energy. What's inside that energy? That's what you need to find out. So you come back to it in another way and you shine a light on it. So quite often we are the mirror for the patient. That's a big part of our role, is mirroring. So did you hear yourself saying that? No. Yeah. You said the word, whatever it might be, 6 times in the last 10 minutes. Oh, well, that's interesting. I didn't really know that. Yeah, well, think about that. Why are you using that word so much? And what does it mean to you? Well, and it might not mean anything immediately. But when they stop and they're quiet and they think about it and you let them just be quiet and carry on their treatment, 15 minutes later, they'll tell you, you know, that word you mentioned, I think it means something like, and a whole story unravels. And they can begin to let go of a whole bunch of energy that's just locked up in that word and associated with that event in their life or series of events, of course.
So how was that person you talked about, the patient that came? What were you, if I may ask, what were you focusing on during
What
that?
I was focusing on was the kidney energy, and specifically the kidney yang, which means the part of the kidney energy which turns you into a person that can actually project your charisma out into the world. Now, that's not everything. Of course it's not. You need kidney yin, which helps you to contain your charisma within yourself. That's just as important. Of course it is. Otherwise, you're going to burn out. But if you kind of project your energy out into the world through your kidney yang, then you're going to be always invisible. People are going to ignore you. You're going to be passed by. You're going to be a doormat, etc., etc. So you this kind of, it's actually also a sexual force, of course. You need to have kidney yang to find a sexual partner. You need kidney yang to express yourself sexually. So all of these things, and obviously this guy, his primary symptom turned out to be frequent urination, which is a classic signal for depleted kidney yang, lack of kidney yang. Or it could be cold in the body, but those two things sometimes go hand in hand anyway. So, but already I had the clues just by not seeing him. Even though I'm an observant person, I use my eyes a lot. I see things many people don't see, but I can see him. He was inadvertently hiding from me.
Okay, that's why I'm not. I'm a little afraid of shiatsu therapists because they know more just by talking to me like right now.
Sure, but I mean, a good shiatsu therapist will encourage you to be confident.
Oh, okay.
And not feel worried about being vulnerable.
Okay.
So trust is a huge part of what we do. Meridians is our next chapter, Eva, and those are my hands. And you'll see the thumb there is resting on a point which we call kidney 1, which is the first point with a name on the kidney channel. The kidney channel goes from the root of the foot there all the way up into the brain. And it goes through the back of the leg, the yin portion of the leg, and it goes through the inguinal area and the reproductive area. It goes through the kidneys themselves. It goes through the spine, and it goes up into the brain. But also it goes through the front of the body here. I'm going to show you where it goes here, and it connects with the heart and with the lungs in the chest. So that's just a crash course on meridians. That's one level of what they are. They have a pathway. And the picture of the waterways is a metaphorical association with what meridians do. They spread nutrition, information, and energy through the system, through their pathways.
So meridians, they're not because meridians are something that are not recognized by science, and they're not found scientifically yet. So how can you explain it to?
Well, because the meridians are conductors of life force, and life force is the subtle material of our life, which can take many, many different forms, from dense energy to extremely etheric energy. So, for example, the joy and the enthusiasm of our conversation era is also chi, but the actual ground elements of your bones is also chi, and everything in between is also kinds of chi, different frequencies of chi, and the body is made up of these different frequencies. Now, there are many types of apparatus which can measure that, many, and they've been around for 50, 60 years. Soviet Union had them a long time ago, and now they're being developed in every single country in the world. Instruments which can detect life energy is not unusual nowadays. But that's not mainstream science, is it? Mainstream science is locked into its own vision of what material is, and that dictates what the world is, according to Western science. Now, that's a really juvenile view of reality. It's a childish view of reality. So science is actually dumber than a fungus. I heard some doctor once say. A doctor said that.
Don't say that. Don't say that, because science has so many great achievements. From what I believe,
Of course.
They can Eastern and Western medicine should be the wisdom should be used from both of those.
Naturally, but Western medicine has been very, very reluctant to do that for many, many years.
So what the science is that they are finding new things, and then within the things that they have found already, they operate. So if they did not discover that yet, they don't use in their paradigm. And so I believe that somewhere on top, they will both science and wisdom of Eastern ancestors, they will meet.
They will, of course, and it won't take very long, actually. But there's a few mental blocks that need to be cleared out of the way before that can happen. But it's happening. It's going to happen really soon, and it's going to happen big time. And it's not just Eastern medicine. It's all traditional wisdom is going to be meeting at that point. And then there's going to be another pyramid opening up from there into a whole new age, which is just around the corner. And we're helping that to happen, of course, with our discussion, which is part of this wave of movement.
Yeah, so people who believe in science only, they are growing with the growth of science, right? And Eastern medicine is on another level, and I believe that we should think of it in terms of not superior and inferior, but just different.
Well, it's a question of maturity, because Western medicine is not very old, whereas the traditional wisdom is millennia old, thousands and thousands and thousands of years. So there's a huge gap there, and we can't expect science to understand that until they let go of some of their concepts. Well, as soon as they do, we're going to be fine. And it's just all that thing you said about Tesla. When science begins to investigate the invisible, stuff's going to happen, and it's going to happen really fast. So we skipped over healing there. And there it is. Did you have a question about healing, Eva?
The process of healing, I did ask at the beginning, I think. If I didn't, yes, I did. The question was if one session can help, or how long should be the therapy?
Well, the key for us is the word process, and even another word you can use is journey. And some journeys are quite short because somebody's just simply been a bit stressed or tired for a while and a bit angry about something, and you can really resolve that quite quickly if it's not seriously chronic and if it's not rooted in the system itself. But if it's rooted in the system and it's chronic, it's going to take longer, and that's going to be a journey. And the journey is always interesting and fascinating, but it's not always easy because there's tough things to unload and unpack and begin to solve and relieve.
So now we can go to the last chapter, Shiatsu in the present and into the future.
So when we wrote this book, we wanted to put this chapter in specifically for the idea of how far have we come? What did Shiatsu look like when we started 30, 40 years ago? What does it look like now? What does the world around us look like, and where are we going?
So what are basic differences?
Basic differences is that actually not that much has happened in the last 30 years, but I think this past year and the next year are going to be major shifts. It's like a huge watershed is coming up really soon. And we've predicted it in this book, actually. We talk about the wave and that the new paradigm is going to come in really soon. When that thing happens that you mentioned, Eva, when science meets these traditional wisdom schools, there's going to be a huge opening of knowledge, of wisdom, and of abundance. That's a key word. When there is abundance, people don't need to fear. When people don't need to fear, they can move into love. When they move into love, there's no limits to what we can achieve as human beings. And our development will just go rocketing into a whole new velocity, a whole new accelerated speed and level.
And what are your predictions in that chapter that you shared?
In the chapter that we shared, we talked about the new paradigm in a general sense, but also in the sense that all of these different aspects of life, from agriculture to architecture to the financial system, the medical system, education system, all of these things have to be aligned with what Tesla is talking about. Frequency, energy, connection, association. And we need to move into the idea that there's enough for everybody. We don't need to be afraid. We don't need to think about scarcity. We don't need to be wage slaves. We're here to enjoy ourselves. We're here to love each other and to help each other develop. That's the purpose of life. So let's just do that.
And what do you think about healthcare system and Shiatsu role in future? How do you think it will look like?
Well, what I think is going to happen now is the healthcare system is going to be completely revamped from the inside. It's going to crumble and a whole new system is going to come, because there is technology already available that's not being used that will completely revolutionize the health system. Once that happens, people like shiatsu therapists will be welcomed in on their own terms. That's an important part, because at this point we haven't been invited in on our own terms. We've always been held with one hand behind our back, or completely limited in what we can do, or told what to do by doctors and nurses, etc. I'm being a bit harsh here, but that's what it amounts to. So there's been no freedom to actually express what we do in the terms which we know how to do, but that will come.
Yes, the holistic healthcare, right?
Exactly, correctly expressed.
It's growing, and I think now because of the pandemic, it's really expanding, and Shiatsu is expanding along.
Yeah, we're part of it. I mean, it's like Shiatsu doesn't exist in any kind of vacuum. Shiatsu exists as part of society, and it exists as part of complementary medicine, and that exists, as you've rightly said, as part of the entire medical field, and that exists as part of the human endeavor of becoming whole and healthy and development. So Shiatsu is just part of all that. But of course, we have a contribution to make because we've been aware of this energy connection for a long, long time. We know that we work with energy, and we're used to interpreting things in terms of energy frequencies. So we're already a few steps ahead of most people. So Shiatsu teachers and therapists, and even students and patients, by the way, are going to be, in a sense, the new leaders, because they can guide people in this new paradigm.
Yes, absolutely. And to me, one thing that is a little concerning is that I read a lot about studies, and pharmaceutical companies, they pay money for studies. And pharmaceutical companies rule the world now with the vaccine. That's really strong leadership, and so they don't invest into findings of what is hara and what is chi and kyo and jitsu, right?
Yeah, I'll go a little bit further than you, Evan. I'll say it's not leadership, it's tyranny.
Yeah, that's a good word. Yes.
And that has to end, and it has to end very, very soon, and it will end very soon.
And we are the people.
Exactly. I mean, it's happening everywhere, all over the world. Grassroots rising on every single level, in every format, in every place, every corner, every town, every village, every school, every couple, every family. It's happening everywhere, and it needs to happen. It has to happen, and it will happen, and it's on its way.
And that's why it is important for all of us to get together, to help each other, empower each other, inspire, and help with marketing. So like, comment, and share.
Yeah. Like, comment, and share.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's why what you're doing with Kumiko is so important, and the fact that you're able to do it week after week with new people, it's really important. I mean, it's just such a beautiful variation of expression. This is a place you can buy the book. You're going to receive this PDF from us, and you can even take a screenshot of that now if you want to. That's there. If you want to buy the book, it's not that expensive. It's great value for money. There's tons of material in there. And by the way, you can read the book backwards, forwards, sideways, upside down, whichever way you want to dive in, it's there for you. So you don't need to read it from beginning to end. You don't even need to read all of it. A few pages every now and then, you're good.
Yeah, and it's $40 for a book, but you can buy a Kindle version for $10.
You can do that. That's like $5 or something, right?
5, yes. So
Look at that. And if you want a version from me signed, send me a message. It's not that much more expensive, actually, and I'll put a dedication in there for you. So that's also an option.
So
We've
we
got-
are uniting together in changing the world. And thank you for your contribution with the book. And thank you to your co-authors. And we are here together, and that's a great thing. And
Sure is.
thank you for a book. And yes, into the future,
To the
all of
future.
us together. And thank you for this great explanation and that we could go through it together.
Thank you, Eva, for those questions.
There's some questions in the comment.
Okay, yeah, we can take those.
Many
But-
comments in the chat, group
Yes.
chat. Mhm.
So Laura is asking, thank you very much for this touching conversation. Will we have a French translation of this book, visionary book?
Yeah, Laura, please contact me and you can translate the book. No problem at all.
That's great. My thought was also, I'm from Poland and I'm in Warsaw right now. And I was thinking, oh my God, I want to share with my friends. Let's talk about translating.
We've got somebody in Italy already translating the first chapter, and hopefully that'll be beginning to move. I have a friend in Germany who's looking at finding somebody to do something in German. So it's all happening. We need French, we need Spanish, and we need German. And Polish, why not? Why not Russian? Why not Swahili, you know? It's
How
just,
about Japanese, Chris?
Oh, how about Japanese? Great idea, Kimiko. But I think you're a bit too busy to be doing this translation, aren't you?
Really? There's more Japanese people. They are
Yeah.
such a great
You
translator.
know, we could ask Stephen Brown to do it, maybe.
All right.
You know Stephen?
Yes. He translated Masunaga Sensei's book.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, a beautiful man, and he's bilingual, absolutely bilingual, Japanese and English. So
Wonderful.
wonderful person.
Emily says, Chris, the whole book is fantastic. It is exactly what I have been wishing for tips, advice, support, mentoring along my shiatsu journey. I would like to ask if I could print some of the pictures from the book as an inspiration in my shiatsu studio.
Yeah, you can just make photographs, but if you do, please give credit to Maria, who made the photo montage, and to Jan Nevelius, who took the photography. That's all I would ask. And those, if you look back through the presentation, you'll find I've written on some of the slides, some of the images that exactly that. So you're here, for example, you'll see photo montage, Maria Sandberg, photography, Jan Nevelius. So as long as those words are there, please be my guest and spread those images far and wide. Maria will be very happy, and Jan as well.
So you guys, you can also make printable posters and available to purchase, or printable that someone can buy a version to print themselves, or posters that could be bought at Amazon, for example,
Really?
because they're beautiful. Yes.
Yeah, they're beautiful works of art, but please make sure to give the credit to those two individuals so that, yeah, because those people worked hard to create those images, and we should always credit the person who came up with the original work, right?
Yes.
Yes. There's a question from Martha.
Go ahead.
Ooh,
Martha
where-
Lopez has a question.
During the process of writing this book, how your vision of shiatsu evolved? That's a good question.
Yeah, it did evolve a lot, because 12 years is a whole cycle around the Chinese clock, right? You know that if you're born like I am as a rabbit, that was in 1963. In 1975, 12 years later, you come back to the rabbit sign, and you've evolved during 12 years, and your perspective on life has changed. So 12 whole years it took to write this book, and our perspective did change a lot. And in fact, Jeremy and Jan moved to some extent out from shiatsu into other spheres of their life. My perspective, what happened for me was that I developed my methods of teaching and my methods of developing treatment methods, my relationships with the meridians, for example, and a whole load of original material came up during that time. And in fact, because of that, I've written a whole new book, which is ready to come out any any month now, any year now, depending on what kind of help I get, assistance I get in doing that. So tons of things changed during that time, just literally loads of things. However, as you now know, the basics of Shiatsu don't change. And Kumiko will probably support me if I tell you that your basic practice is always with you. And if it isn't always with you, then you need to go back to it. So you always need to be in the hara. You always need to be cognizant of the changing polarities, the ways things shift and change. You need to be continually moving into the space of your client to understand their vulnerability and their fears and their methods of expression or lack of methods of expression. So the basics are absolutely the most important thing. And out from that, you have flowering. So I call it roots and flowers, and both are equally important. The roots, if you don't have good roots, the flowers will be non-existent. But if the flowers are allowed to flower properly, then you have this beautiful expression which will generate beauty in the world. And that's our ultimate job. I hope that answered that question, Martha.
There was a question, can you give us a link to enter your Wednesday gatherings? So we will do that after.
Okay, well, you can just, my email is right there. You can send me an email or connect with me through Facebook. Just send me a friend request and we can communicate through Messenger, or do it through Kumiko and Eva. No problem at all for me.
I will post it in Global Shiatsu Community for All group,
Okay.
which we invite all of you to join.
All right.
And in our news feed also, I will share the link. And Cordula said, "Oh my God, shall we call Eva the fourth musketeer?"
D'Artagnan.
D'Artagnan.
Well, you have to dye your hair black, I think, and make it a bit more curly. But yeah,
Okay,
why not?
I can do that. Thank you so much. And you did, yes, this is the plan of our future gatherings in May. But when we had rehearsal, you said that if we will have some time, we will do some practice. You have some.
If people have time and would like to stay, I would be very happy to share a practice with you. Absolutely. So maybe 15, 20 minutes. If people have time to stay, then we could do that. That'd be great.
Okay, so now in May, we will have a somatic meditation around 5 elements with Barbara Aubrey, then Seiki Discipline and Surrender by Alice Wilden. And then, oh, this is the incorrect poster.
Oh, yeah.
Kate Burford will be. Kumiko, can you help me, please?
Kate Burford is going to talk about life after menopause, right? The joy of life as a human female after menopause.
That's right.
Yes.
I met Kate. She's a really, really nice person and a great teacher.
Wonderful.
Really
and
nice.
Alice is wonderful. She's going to talk about Seiki Shiatsu.
Very cool.
She's a co-writer of the Seiki Shiatsu.
Yep, exactly.
So Kumiko says that single centering can ripple in unlimited ways. So, and that Shiatsu is the continuous movement. So we are the Shiatsu movement, creating centered ripples.
Wonderful.
Of kindness and harmony. This is what we do. And here, teacher training that the 5 lights we offer, you can learn with Kumiko in the fall, and now during summertime with Wendy Bolognese and with Ambria Matthew. Those are 2 our teachers, and we recommend this training to all of those not only interested in Shiatsu but also in Eastern medicine. So it's a great gift to someone that you love, or for a some celebration for birthday to your friends and your family, of course. Okay, thank you.
Wonderful. So shall we conclude first part? And then if anybody has the time, let's stay. Chris kindly offered movement. Yeah. All right. So let's put the both hands together and gasho, and let's meditate. Thank you for this wonderful talk. What a pleasure. What a deep knowledge. And we are so grateful to have your knowledge, your presence. Thank you. So I just want to share this fish song for kids. In the month of May is the kids month in Japan. So let's send the healing energy to our kids, our younger generations. We hope they're gonna love Shiatsu and they continue Shiatsu energy to the next generations.
So everybody who's left, let's do a short exercise together.
Oh no, we are here. Okay, let's do exercise. We have
I'm gonna change the
music.
focus.
Okay, thanks, Chris. So everybody standing up?
We're gonna sit down in Seiza, if possible.
Okay.
And I'm gonna show you a very, very simple hara exercise.
Wonderful. So I'm gonna put Chris and spin. Okay. Yes. All right.
Yeah. You want to spotlight my screen?
Yes, I pin you.
I can see you. I got you spotlighted, Kumiko. I don't know what everybody else can see.
Press spin. I can see you. You're so big. Oh.
I'm not that big. How's the lighting?
Great.
Okay.
Yeah, everybody can pin Chris from your end. Right.
Ah, now you got back on me again.
Okay.
So people, sit yourself comfortably. If you want to sit on a chair, that's fine. If you want to sit on, give your back against the wall, that's fine, no problem at all. If you can sit in Seiza, a lot of Shiatsu people can, most Shiatsu people can, then please sit in Seiza. Seiza meaning correct sitting, right? It has a meaning. And why is it correct sitting? Because it's so easy to keep your spine straight and aligned in this position. It's so easy to sink your energy down into the dantian, into the hara area. It's also very easy to relax your diaphragm when you're in this position. So there's a bunch of different reasons why this is called correct sitting. All of those things combined, straight spine, hara consciousness, and relaxed diaphragm, what they do is they tend to allow your heart to relax and your mind to empty. And these are the preconditions for awareness. When we're in this kind of awareness, we are able to actually perceive things as they happen without coloring too much with our preconceived ideas and our filters and our past and our baggage of things that we've learned previously or been encumbered by previously. We are more in touch with the present moment as it happens. So all of those reasons are good reasons to be sitting in Sesa regularly, or at least every now and then. If you want to have something supporting underneath, that's absolutely fine. I don't have at the moment, but you easily could have, no problem at all. What we're going to do is very simply place our hands on our legs to begin with and allow your body to become aware of itself. What does that mean? It means as you take a breath, you'll feel the breath touching every single part of your body, every single cell inside your body. And it's a very simple thing, but a very profound thing. Even though it's a simple thing, it's not easy to do because you actually have to stop, come into your awareness, contact your breath, and follow it through the fabric of your body, the actual structure of your body. And you'll find the structure of your body is permeable. That means it's hollow. That means it's made of energy. Materia, the actual material of life, is itself composed of energy. It's made up of frequency. Some slow, some fast. We're going to look at a few different frequencies today, 5 different frequencies actually, and we're going to use the hara, the abdomen, to do that little exercise. I want you to also think about your back and about your spine and bring some awareness into the musculature of your back and to the skeleton, the bony part of your back, the spine itself. Feel it rooting down into the sacrum and the tailbone. Feel it blossoming and flowering up into the skull and the brain and the organs of sensory perception, the eyes, ears, nose, mouth, and the skin of your face. And then feel the skin in your entire body. Become aware of yourself externally through the skin and the energy pouring around you every second of the moment, every moment, and also internally through the breath permeating every cell of your being. Feel yourself as a multi-dimensional being. What we're going to do right now is going to bring our hands to the abdomen. We'll bring our hands together, place one on the other, in any way you like, underneath the navel. There's my navel, I'm pointing at the navel. Underneath the navel, we're going to place our hands comfortably against our belly. There's a lot of noise somewhere. If you could turn your microphone off, please, people. Mute yourself so people can concentrate. Thank you. Bringing on awareness to where your hands are sitting. Your hands create the awareness. Your physical awareness is there. Your mental awareness follows. Your emotional awareness is aroused. And your spiritual awareness follows from all of that. Allow all of those things to unfold, to connect, and to develop. Notice how you're feeling. Notice how you're breathing. Notice how your body feels. Notice what kind of colors are passing in front of your eyes or behind them. Notice what kind of emotional tinge is coming to this moment through you. Are you feeling in any special way, in any special direction? Notice any kind of bodily reactions, emotional reactions, mental or soul level reactions. Notice images arising, clear ones or diffuse ones. Notice different parts of your body that seem to be activated or called or awoken by this particular contact in the lower abdomen. Notice how your breath is affected. Notice how the air around you feels. Notice how the space within you feels. In a few moments, we're going to shift to a new place. And what you're going to find is that the shift will happen quite quickly. You'll notice there'll be a change. So just be aware of what kind of changes happen and how you would describe them, how you perceive them, and what levels they occur on, in what order. We're going to move our hands away from this lower area. And we're going to bring one hand very softly to touch the top area of the abdomen. So beneath your breastbone, the top of the abdomen, above the navel. There's my navel. And we're touching now in this area just above. And I'm very, very lightly touching with 2 or 3 fingers. In fact, 4 fingers. No, 3. And it's a light touch, very light, as if a butterfly landed there. Notice how it affects every single aspect of your existence in this moment on multiple levels as a cascade of events unfold, triggering each other. Some of them are very subtle. Some of them are not subtle at all. Some of them are physical. Some of them are definitely not what you would call physical. Some of them are from your immediate past. Some of them are from your distant past. Some of them have a very positive clang, a very positive energy. Some of them not really so positive. Notice how your posture and your breath are affected by this touch in this particular place, in this particular part of your abdomen. Feel what happens to your relationship to the air around you and the space within you. We're going to move to a new spot in the abdomen any minute now. And when we do, we will register a whole new bunch of small changes, and some of them quite large, in fact. We're going to move to the left-hand side of our abdomen. So if you imagine where your navel is, go from your navel outwards to your left, towards the left-hand side of your body, where your left arm and leg are. And join both of your fingers together and give a very light form of pressure just by resting your hands in that space. Become aware of the immediate reactions and all the other reactions that unfold in its wake. Make sure you're aware of the entire spectrum of what is unfolding in this moment. Some of it's physical, some of it's very much more on the etheric level. All of it is just as real, just as valid, and just as important. And become aware of moving into a new set, a new cluster of vibrations, energies, associations, memories, images, colors, and emotion. Become aware of your breath and if something has happened to the breath. Become aware of your physical posture and the level of comfort you are currently experiencing in your body. We're going to shift in a moment to a new spot. And once again, we're going to notice changes, some of them immediate, some of them gradual, some of them major, some of them much more subtle as we shift. The shift we're going to make is from the left-hand side of the abdomen across to the right-hand side of the abdomen. So across where the navel is in the middle and across to the other side, the right-hand side, on the same side as your right leg and your right arm and shoulder. But in exactly the same way, give that exact same type of touch to this area. Keep the stimulation almost exactly the same if you can, so that you can compare and contrast the opposite side of your abdomen, where we were just now. Once more, become aware of the space around you and the space within you. Become aware of your breathing. Become aware of your posture. Become aware of your thoughts, your ideas, your emotions, feelings. We have one final space to visit. We're going to shift in a few moments to that space, and it's located in the middle of your abdomen, where the navel is, the belly button, if you like to use those words. We're going to move both of our hands there any minute now, and again, we will notice the shift, we will notice the change, we will notice different perceptions arriving. Let's move together into that central area and arrange your fingers around the navel. So I'm above and below, and I'm to the right and to the left, curving my fingers around the navel. So we started at the bottom, we went to the top, and we went to the left, we've been to the right. Now we're in the middle. What happens when we join the middle of our abdomen in this way? Remember that if you drift off into what you're experiencing, come back into the present moment so that you're aware of what it is you were experiencing. You'll be able to tell us what you were experiencing, and together we can build up our knowledge of what energy is and how it varies depending on the places we touch and the way we touch. And gradually rest your hands in a neutral position wherever you like. It could be somewhere on your abdomen. It could be one of the places we visited previously. You might want to go back. It could be just allowing your hands to rest on your thighs. It could be resting in between your legs. It could be resting beside you on the mattress or on the chair or wherever you are. It could be on any part of your body where you feel spontaneously that your hands would like to rest for some interesting or beneficial purpose. And once more, continue to tune in to your current experience of life, of existence, breath and body, structure and posture, emotion, idea, image, sound, the totality of your existence in this moment. Your relationship with the past, your past, the past of your parents, grandparents, ancestors, your own past in terms of incarnation, your future in terms of your children, their children, that lifeline as it goes on, your future in terms of your students, your patients, your clients, your fellow family members, your work friends, people you meet in the street, the people you meet on the bus, in the cafe, in the restaurant, but also your own development and the development of mankind as we move into this new paradigm, this new world of freedom and abundance and love. And I'll be moving back towards my screen in a moment and giving the word back to Eva and Kumiko to conclude this session in the way they feel most appropriate. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your awareness and energy. And I'm very grateful for this opportunity to share with you. I hope for many more.
All right.
I feel so good. How's everybody? Everybody feeling okay? Oh,
Feeling great. Feeling great.
good job, Chris.
Yes, great. I almost fell asleep.
Yeah. Luckily, I didn't.
Hey.
Thank you everyone for joining, and good luck with your Shiatsu practice. Good luck with your discovery of Shiatsu, and share Shiatsu and spread the word. Let's increase the awareness together.
Yes, use the Shiatsu everyday life. It's so good. Any feedback? Emily, Coden, Max, Yumi,
A lot of feedback in the
Lydia.
chat.
Thank you for joining today. See you next Saturday.
See you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care of yourself.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
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 Thank you. It was wonderful.
you.
Thank
Great.
you.
Bye. Thank you.